Okay, so at this point, the next thing is when we get the task of the user. So if I should take this and then print task, right? So I'm just going to run this again. Click CLS and
Hello, I'm Sonia, your virtual companion. Here is a list of what I could do. What's
so
your name?
okay, my name is Precious.
Nice to
Precious.
meet you, Precious. What would you have me do?
Um, play, play me, uh, play me a song, right? Song. So you could see here, this is the task that was printed here, the task. So how do we let Sonia understand our intent? How do we let Sonia understand what we're trying to tell her? To do this, we're going to create another class, another module with a class inside of it that's going to be able to let Sonia understand what we want her to do, which is the task, understand the task, and then the second thing is carry out the task. So those are the two things we are going to do right now. So inside of Sonia skills, we're going to create another file, another model inside of this model called this skills.py. These are basically what Sonia could do. So Sonia can understand our intent or understand a particular task. And then the second thing she could do is carry out the task. So those are the skills Sonia possesses. Now, in order to do this, I'll say class Sonia skills and inside of skills, sorry, just hold on a bit. So inside of skills, right? So the first thing we want to do is um, initialize our variable and call self. Yeah, the first thing we say self dot Sonia skill. So whenever we call Sonia skill, this is block of code is going to run self dot Sonia skill, and we're going to put in a list of what Sonia can do, right? A list of what Sonia can do. So Sonia can tell us a riddle. This is just a word. Sonia can play in music. Now, and I'm going to tack on song here, right? I'll explain as we move forward why I had music and why I had riddle. But beforehand, the reason why I did is because if you say song, song actually means music. If you said music, music means songs, right? So there are two different words to identify one thing. So in order, if you tell Sonia, please play us your music, even though she sees music or even though she sees songs, right, she would know that we want her to play a song or we want her to play music. But in a situation where we don't tell it, okay, a song means music and music means song, do you get? Even though we tell her play music, if we exclude song and we tell her play music, she will understand that. But if we tell her play song, she's not going to understand that because this is not included in her list. Because this is more like an AI. Yeah, it only works with the kind of data you feed it. So we've just given it the data of songs. So it's going to know that okay, I can do riddle and I can do music, but I cannot do song because it's not going to understand. You get? So we need to tell it that okay, this is song, and then we'll use logical programming to tell it that music and song are the same thing. So whenever you see song and whenever I see music, I want to do the same thing, right? So I'll explain further and explain whilst I get to that stage where we're going to get this part done. So these are basically a list of what Sonia could do. So that is it. So the next thing is we want to create a method. Now, instead of this method, we'll call this method validate skill. Now, the reason why it's called validate skill, this is to check whether this would help Sonia to know the kind of task that the user is trying to tell Sonia to do, right? So validate skill is going to this is a skill that is given to Sonia to be able to validate task. You could call this validate task if you want. I called mine validate skill, or maybe validate task makes more sense, right? So yeah, validate tax makes more sense. So we'll take in a tax of what the user wants to do. I want to take in a name of what the user wants of the user. Sorry, we'll take the name of the user and the tax, the name of the user that has this name wants Sonia to uh, do. The first thing is when we take the task, we want to check. So we'll declare a variable here called check task, check task, right? Uh, task. Inside of this variable, we want to now check if um, the task the user has given to Sonia. We want to check if that task is inside of this list. Do you get? Right? So if it's inside of this list, that means Sonia can perform what the user is trying to tell us to do. But if it's not inside, Sonia will tell the user, sorry, I can't do that at the moment. Right? So that's what we're trying to build. I didn't demo this part. I didn't demo this part in the video, but um, I'll still walk us through the process of building even most of the things I didn't demo. So the first thing we want to do is we want to initiate a list function. Or let me do this first. We want to use the filter function. We did this, we did this. We want to use the filter function to filter to check if a task is inside the task the user wants us to do is inside of this place, right? So we'll say filter. Remember, the filter takes in a function, and it takes in an iterable. Remember, guys. So inside of this, we'll call because I won't go back to explain the whole of this stuff. So forgive me, permit me. So I'll say we'll use a lambda function, and then we'll say we'll just initialize a variable here called tax. Sorry, so called x, and then we'll say x in tax, right? And in here we'll say self dot Sonia skills, right? So what is basically happening here is that it took this iterable self dot skills, which is this list, and then we wrote a lambda function that says for x in tax. So its filter function is going to loop through self dot skills here, which is uh, this list, and for each item in this list, right, for each item in this list, going to assign each of these items to this x variable, and then I'm going to check here x, if x, like this riddle, if x in tax, right? So if tax is, let's say tax is play music, right? Tax is playing me a music. So we're going to check is what's going to happen. It's going to loop through this, and then for the first loop, we're going to check riddle and assign riddle to x. And in here, we say, okay, x, which is riddle in tax. We check here, is riddle in tax? Is riddle in tax? No, riddle is not in tax. What it does, it moves to the next iterate, the next item, and then it checks again. Is x, which is now music, is music in tax? Yes, of course, music is in tax. Music is in tax. And then what it does is that it's going to return a true statement, or it's going to return the return a true statement, or return the item that was found, which is music, right? So we're going to see this practically, and yeah, so we're going to do this print check task. That is if check. Okay, let's just print first check that and see first. See what it returns to us. I'll do a CLS, so we just build the first validate, and then let's come to our app.py. So at this point where the user has giving Sonia a task, we want to call the validate the model, that model we just created. So we'll say from Sonia skills, no, not this spelling, Sonia skills, yeah, which is this module, right? From Sonia skills, where does our skills, our Sonia skills class relies? It relies in this skills file. So we say dot skills import validate task. So that's for this guy importing validate. Okay, so sorry, I had to take a break. I had to go check something. So that's for validate tags, which is this guy here. So we're basically calling this method, which is an instance of this class. And yeah, yeah, right. So we just call this, and yeah, no, we're not supposed to do that. So we're supposed to say, I actually made a mistake. We're supposed to call this class, not the object directly. Of course, we could if we want by tackling the name of the class to this and then calling the name of the, but I prefer to do things differently. So we could say Sonia skills, yeah, which is the name of this class, and Sonia skills, and then we come here, and then we say Sonia underscore. I'll just call this variable Sonia skill, and then Sonia, yeah, which is this now, yeah. And so we just initialize this object here, and then what we have to do now is we're going to declare a variable. I'll explain why we're declaring this variable later on. We'll call this validate, right? And equals to Sonia, which is the object we just declared, and then we'll say validate task, which is this guy we just declared validate task. And inside of it, we want to pass in two things. Remember, this takes in a parameter of the task and the name of the user. We've already gotten that this is the task. So we pass in the task. And then the next thing we pass is the username of this user, just like this, right? And then when we pass all of this, save this, and then inside of our skill, we're going to print check tags here, right? So let's run the script from our app.py and then let's see what happens. We have
Hello, I'm Sonia, your virtual companion. Here is a list of what I could do. What's your name?
so
Nice
Precious.
to meet you, Precious. What would you have me do?
Uh, uh, Fiddle. Skills object has no attributes. Validate task. Hmm. Okay. Okay. API. Sonia skills. Sonia skill. So let me run that again and see.
Hello, I'm Sonia, your virtual companion. Here is a list of what I could do. What's your name?
So I'll say Precious.
Nice to meet you, Precious. What would you have me do?
Um, Tell me riddle. Oh, I'm still having this error. Okay, let me walk through my code and see how to fix it. Okay, so I think I figured out the issue because sometimes like this when you're building programs like debugging your code can take for a while and it's very challenging. That's one of the major challenges I think every downtime every programmer goes through. So this was what was causing my error. So in Python, whenever you're declaring methods, do not make sure the indentation, the tabs, be very careful. This is supposed to be here and not here. So that was why it wasn't seeing this as a method because inside of the init uh, method. So now I've done this, I'll just save this and go back to my app.py and then I'll run this.
Hello, I'm Sonia, your virtual companion. Here is a list of what I could do. What's your name?
Then I'll tell it Precious.
Nice to meet you, Precious. What would you have me do?
Tell me a riddle, right? And then you see it print out the filter object, right? And then it says tell me a riddle. So if you come here, it prints out the tax. Remember, this is the check tax, print tax. It checks here, first of all, it checks here, it checks here, and then it returns the filter object of which we printed here. And here we are actually printing the tax, which is tell me a riddle. And then we took this tax inside of here, the validate tax. We took the tax and the person's username, and then we checked using the filter function if this tax is inside of the Sonia skill list. But to get this, to do this proper, we're going to convert this, put this inside of the list, right? Then if we should run this again, obviously we're going to get a list of, yeah. So let me just run this one more time.
Hello, I'm Sonia, your virtual companion. Here is a list of what I could do. What's your name?
Precious,
Nice to meet you, Precious. What would you have me do?
play music for me. Okay, now you can see now it's outputted the task we want it to do. Like you could see how we took the task here, and then due to the task, the input we gave Sonia, Sonia is able to tell, okay, we want this user now is requesting me to play a music. So this was how we got that, we performed that logic using the list function, the filter, and lambda, blah blah blah. This was how we did it, and then we're printing what the user wants us to do. So now the next thing for us to do now is to now write a program that is going to check, okay, what task is the user trying to tell us to perform, and based on that, do this or do that or do this right. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to write a logic that's going to check first for riddles. For riddles, we're going to write a riddles logic first, so that Sonia will be able to tell us riddles first, and then we'll slowly, the next thing we'll do is um, write a program that Sonia is going to be able to play music for us. So for the riddle, the first thing we want to check is whenever this is true, right? Whenever this, like you can see here, a list that is not empty returns true, but the list that is empty returns false, right? And now if we pass the tax here and we're trying to check if the tax is inside of this skill, right? If Sonia has that skill, if Sonia does not have the skill, it's going to return an empty list, and an empty list equates false. But if the tax is inside of the skill, is there one item is going to be inserted. It's going to filter just the item that is in the task, right? So we're going to now check if true, which means if check task. So if there's something inside of the list, which means it's true. So we're going to check if check task, which means if true. And then inside of if check task, we're going to embed. I talked about this when we're doing the if else statement. I talked about chaining and nexting. I talked about nexting or chaining if else statement. You can also do this with functions whilst we were learning mm, conditional statement using if and else. So I said if you care about learning this, you could look at documentation, so look at websites where you could learn, or probably videos where you can learn more about advanced concept of using if else. So right here, we just checked if that task at all is can Sonia perform that task, yes or no. So if yes, if yes, this is it. So we want to check for another if statement. We want to say check skill, right? Oh, sorry, check task or check skill. Should I change it? No, no, I'll just change it to check skill. Check skill right now. So this is the list, right? This is returns a list to us, which is this music. So how do we access this music without looping? We use indexing. So I'll say it's check skill 0. Give me this index, the index of this item, which is 0, and then I'll say equal to um, riddle. So if it's equal to riddle, I spelled this incorrectly. If it's equal to riddle, I want you to do this. I want Sonia to do this. If it's not, I want Sonia uh, to not do this. So that's the logic behind it. So the first thing that happens, remember the pictorial um, explanation I did of the logical control flow, that whenever if it's a riddle, Sonia is going to initiate her first statement for that riddle, saying, here is a list of riddle. Please impress me by answering at least 4 riddles correctly. So to do this, we're going to now call the Sonia speak model that's going to enable Sonia to have a voice. So to do this, we have to import that model because that model is not inside of, we don't have that model here. So here, from here now, we'll just bring this down. Then we'll say from Sonia skills, okay, from Sonia underscore skills dot Sonia underscore skill, which is this guy, from Sonia underscore skills dot Sonia speak, which is this guy here. Sonia speak. We want to import what? We want to import Sonia speak, right? Which is the class of this file, this model here. And then inside of here, we want to initiate that object as Sonia, and then say Sonia speak. That's it, right? So inside of here, if this task the user is trying to tell ask us to do, if it's a riddle, what we want to do is we want to speak. Sonia has to now speak to the user by calling Sonia, which is an instance of this class, which is the object we just instantiated, saying Sonia dot speak, just like previously, just like we've been doing it. So we say we're going to use the f string and say here is we don't need to use the f strings here. I was thinking we're going to use dynamically call a variable. So we'll say here is a list of riddle. Please impress me by answering answer wait um wait I just forgot to spell answering yeah, at uh list for riddles correct. Oh, that's double R, not triple R. Correctly, right? So yeah, so here's a list of riddle. This impressed. Oh, I spelled this incorrectly. Please impress me by first me by answering at least four riddles correctly, right? So at this point, let's save this code. Let's get rid of. Okay, let me see this here. Let's run our code to see. Oh my
Hello,
God.
I'm Sonia, your virtual companion. Here is a list of what I could do. What's your name?
Okay, I'll say my name is
Nice to
Precious.
meet you, Precious. What would you have me do?
Um, tell me a riddle. Oh, we had an error. It says name check skill. So if check skill is not defined, so let me check my code back since I had. Oh, wow. This is check task, right? So we made a mistake. Sorry. Supposed to be check task. Check task. Yes, check task. Check task. Okay, so we'll do CLS. Go back to after 5 and then
Hello, I'm Sonia, your virtual companion. Here is a list of what I could do. What's your name?
so my name is Precious.
Nice to meet you, Precious. What would you have me do?
Tell me a riddle.
Here is a list of riddle. Please impress me by answering at least 4 riddles correctly.
Wow. And you can see, this is the tax. This is Sonia's skill. She has detected that she wants to tell a riddle. She wants us to tell her. Oh God, why do I keep banging words? She wants us. We want her to tell us a riddle. Yes, we want her to tell us. She just detected that, and then she said made this statement. So yeah, that's it for this session. In the next session, we'll be looking at how to now tell the user a riddle, right? How do we tell the user a riddle? So the next function, in the next section, sorry, we're going to be building a method, another method, right? That is going to now make Sonia tell us a riddle or play a riddle with us. So that's it for this session.